we're recording and live.
I believe so.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think it's time to call this meeting to order of the West Fargo Public Library Board of Directors on July 9th at 5:30 p.m. So I call the meeting to order. We will start with the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections to the consent agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Steve makes the motion, Larry seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda approved. Carissa will move on to the regular agenda.
First item, we are excited to welcome our new commission representative, Mandy George. So welcome, Commissioner George. Welcome, Mandy. Hello.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm
we're happy to have you.
Hello, welcome.
Meeting everybody. I look forward to actually meeting everybody in person at some point.
Yeah. Should we do obviously you can see all of our names, but perhaps we should do the friendly thing and do a round of introductions. And also, we have another new person with us that I'm excited to introduce to you all too. So I'll let her introduce herself. So go have at it. I guess I don't know what order to go in because we're all.
Why don't we start with staff?
Sure.
Oh, I can go. I'm Lauren. I'm the Youth Services Manager at the library.
I'm Alicia, and I am the new office coordinator, and I just started on Monday.
Oh, welcome.
Yes.
Is that all for staff? Yes.
And then me,
Okay.
obviously. Hi, Carissa.
Hi.
I'm Alana Rarick. We've spoken a few times by phone, Mandy. I've been on the board for about a year, and I am president of the board. Jody?
My name is Jody Herring. I have been on the board since November of last year. I am currently the vice president of the board, and I work in the pharmaceutical sciences department at NDSU.
Awesome.
My name is Steve Anglin. I've been on the board 2 years. I look forward to meeting you in person someday. And thank you for being on the board. We appreciated this. We appreciate the city commission's input.
Cool.
I'm Larry. I've been on the board this time for about 2 years, I guess. I'm a longtime board member otherwise, and I'm a librarian at Minnesota State University, Moorhead.
Oh. Awesome. Well, it's good to meet everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I guess besides being a city commissioner, I'm also a mom. I am a full-time pilot, and I really enjoy using the library services, so I'm excited to be on the board.
Wonderful. We're happy to have you and look forward to meeting you and hearing your opinions. So next on the agenda is the election of officers. Carissa, do you have any to say?
Yeah, sure. So part of our bylaws, Article 8 of our bylaws, state that at the regular July meeting, one board member is to be elected president and one board member is to be elected vice president, and a secretary should also be appointed from either the group of board members or from library staff. If a secretary is not appointed, library staff will be responsible for the duties of the secretary. I guess I would put a recommendation in that you all appoint Alicia as the board secretary. That's part of her role as being in charge of administrative duties for the library. So I will just throw that out there, but otherwise I will turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the office coordinator to be the minute taker for our meetings.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of having the office coordinator, Alicia, do secretarial duties on behalf of the board, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. So we still need to address, it sounds like, the president and vice president. I am happy to stay on. I am happy to be kicked off, not kicked off the board, but I can be a member at large. It does not matter to me.
Alana, I think you're doing an amazing job. And if you're willing to stay the president, I think you would really serve the board well as president.
I'm with her.
Yeah, if I was to grade your performance as president the last year, I would give you an A, which is pretty good for a new board member.
Thank you. I'm going to have my dad watch this later.
I move to nominate Alana Rarick as president of the West Fargo Public Library Board of Directors.
Yes, I second that.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Vice President. Jody is currently our acting vice president. I've really enjoyed my relationship with Jody. Jody, are you willing to stay on?
Yes, I'm willing to stay on in that position. I'm also open to somebody else taking the position if they would like to serve in that role.
Larry or Steve, are you interested in taking on that position? Larry's shaking his head. No, I can't see Steve. He's not immediately available.
If you were interested in continuing on, Jody, I would support you. I promise if something happens to Alana, we wouldn't automatically appoint you president. It's not like the United States where you'd automatically have to have the job. We would make a special arrangements if you'd be willing to stay on.
Okay, sounds good.
I move to nominate Jody Herring as vice president of the Board of Directors of the West Fargo Public Library.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of electing Jody Herring as vice president of the West Fargo Public Library Board, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. And Mandy, in the past, I don't know if we reviewed with the attorney, but we did discuss, and we, maybe somebody else can speak up here, but I think we decided that a commission member could not hold a president or vice president position. Okay.
That makes sense to me because there's a lot of duties you have to do. So that's a good idea.
One more quick question for you, Carissa. This applies to Larry and I in a year from now, and it'll apply for Alana and Jody in 2 years. What is the process if we do want a second term? Does the rest of the board have to agree, or if they feel like somebody else is better for the next term, do you put it to a vote, or how does that work for a second term?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's one that I have on a list of questions to ask the attorney to get clarification on, because I want to be 100% sure, but I do think that what I remember in the past happening is that I think the person had to resubmit the application, the board has to reapprove it, and it has to get reappointed by the city commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
The good news about our current makeup is if everyone is happy continuing on, and if we all get along as a team and work as a team, theoretically this group could be together for quite some time, and hopefully that would help get things done.
That's a very good point. So I think we will move on to the next item, which is the 2021 library budget.
Thanks, Alana. So tonight I will be asking for you to approve a draft of the library's 2021 budget, which is part of the larger City of West Fargo budget for 2021. Just to backtrack just a little bit, since we have a couple new people with us at the last, or excuse me, we started submitting drafts of our budget in April, the different city departments, and then I met with Commissioner Jardavig, who was our commission rep at the time, Jim Larson, the finance director, and city administrator Tina Fisk, to review and workshop our draft of the budget. And so at this point, we've done some cutting out of it, and at that time they had asked me to cut about $100,000 out of what we originally got back when we got our numbers back, from personnel lines and stuff like that. So that work has been done, and then I got it to a point with a second draft, and then that's what was presented to the library board last month at the June meeting. And at that meeting, I took feedback and questions, and so tonight I'll follow up on those questions that were asked and then allow additional time for discussion and then seek your approval at this meeting. And then going forward, I believe the city commission is still set to review a preliminary draft on August 3rd. So this is just one step in a larger process, and our budget is not officially approved by the city commission at this point, but this is the library board's approval is one step in our particular process. So to start, I emailed you yesterday with an updated draft, and there are two changes from the draft that you reviewed in June to this draft that I sent yesterday. One being that the city has adjusted cost of living slightly in response to, I believe, dropped revenues due to COVID. So the reduction is from 2.5% increase for cost of living to 1.5% increase for cost of living. So that's why the salary line is different. And then the other thing is, between the draft you reviewed last month to this month, additional portion of a mill has been added to the amount that we would receive in tax revenue. So the difference between what we are going to receive in tax revenue and what we're operating at has shrunk. So that's why the number that was on your budget from last time, where it said net budget, it was more in the last draft that you reviewed. And so both factors of the fact that we are now receiving one additional mill instead of just a portion of a mill, and the fact that because of COVID, the cost of living has been adjusted, that's what has reduced the net budget that you see at the bottom of the budget. So that was those are the two changes between June and July. Does anybody have anything on that? Or should I keep on moving to other questions that you had last time?
So our net budget at current is about $200,000 in the red.
That's correct. So as we talked about last time, the plan for that is to move funds from the general fund reserve to cover that. So like I said before, what the plan is to gradually increase the library's mills over time to get back to the place we were before we had our mill reduction. And it can't happen obviously all in 1 year. So the plan is to have funds move from the general fund reserve to our budget to allow us to operate at the level that we need. Does that make sense?
I just have one question, and I can't pull it up in front of me. I think I remember on the line that was on education, there was a fairly big jump from previous years to this year. And I was just curious what that was.
Yeah, yep, I can talk about that now because I had that on my list of things to follow up on, so I'm glad that you asked. So in the past, the library has been substantially underfunded in professional development. And I did a little more research between last meeting and this meeting, and it looked to me like on average, most city departments fell between 1,000 and 2,000 per FTE within their department. Previously, we were at about $430 per FTE. So the library was just really lacking training funds. And now, if approved, this amount would put us, it wouldn't be out of line with what the rest of the departments are receiving in terms of training funds. So that's the reason for the jump, is that I feel really strongly that we need to invest in our staff, and in order for us to maintain innovative services to residents, we have to develop staff.
We're talking about line 340, correct? Travel and education.
Correct. Yep, at least that's what I was talking about. So I hope that's what you're asking about, Mandy.
Yeah, that's exactly what my question was.
Okay.
And so just to follow up on that, just in case anybody asks me, I could see where questions might come up on that. When you talk about training and travel, then do you send people to conferences or? Yeah. Okay.
Good question. So that's part of it. Yep. So in the library profession, the bulk of our training comes from going to professional conferences. So that's part of it. And the other thing is various remote online short-term classes and webinars. So that's what I mean when I say training. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Yep.
And that was kind of talked about at our last meeting last month. The implied assumption is that there's probably not going to be a lot of travel for this coming year, because I think we brought that up, that maybe it wouldn't look good to the public right now, but there's probably not going to be that travel for the next 6 to 12 months anyway for these in-person conferences.
I paid $60 to go to the ALA virtual conference. So
There will be a lot of costs electronically.
Yep.
It is less than in person though, correct?
Yes, because you don't have the travel piece of
Right.
it. Yeah.
Which means you can get more training this year.
you don't
through
have
different avenues.
You don't have the infrastructure to support on the other end. You know,
Oh, with the
speakers aren't being flown in at expense. They're
right.
speaking from their office.
Yeah.
If a line item like that, for instance, if you don't use the full amount, like, because if you're not traveling for the training, would that amount then be reserved in a training fund that would continue into the following year? Or then what would happen to those funds?
Yeah, good question. So what would happen is it would go into the library's reserve fund. We have our own reserve fund that's separate from the general fund reserve. So it would go into the reserve.
Okay.
But it doesn't, maybe to answer your question better, it doesn't like carry over and into the next year specifically. Like it doesn't just roll over into that line item for the next year.
Okay.
My understanding is that when we have unspent, it goes into our reserve.
Once it's in the reserve, can it be used for anything at your discretion then at that point?
I believe that funds in the reserve can only be used with approval of the city commission. Does anybody want to correct me on that? But I'm pretty sure that is the case. Because the reserve fund is really meant for emergency expenses, you know, like
Water main break or something, or
like we all of a sudden need, I don't know, every computer needs to be replaced because something happened and I don't know, you know, it'd be insured. I can't think of a great example off the top of my head, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The advice is that we have like 6 to 9 months of operating costs in reserve at all times. Yeah.
Maybe the water main break inside the library floods the books or something.
There you go. Yeah.
And we don't have a lot in our reserves right now. They were
that's
drained.
Part of the, that's correct. That's part of the issue. Yep.
That's not the reason that there's a jump in education and training. It's truly so that your staff can receive more training and education.
That's correct. Yep.
Chris, was there any other items that you wanted to address on the budget?
Yep. So Alana, last time you had a question about WSI and you're wondering why it was lower in 2021. So I reached out to the finance director, Jim, on that question. And in 2020, the amount budgeted was based on a flat rate. In 2021, it's based on an actual rate that's charged, not just on a flat basis, but for our department specifically based on our number of staff. So that's why it was different. Yep.
Thank you for following up on that.
Absolutely. Yep. No problem. There are also some questions previously about the technology line and how the cost savings was arrived at in that line for 2021. So I mentioned part of it before was partnering with City IT to share laptops. The other thing is we had a very expensive item in our 2020 budget, which is a very rare purchase that you'd only purchase maybe every 5 to 10 years, and that was a microfilm machine. So that's not really a super frequently recurring expense. And then the other thing is that this year when I was working on the budget with the IT director and the finance director, we did some line item changes to normalize the library's budget a bit more with how the rest of the city codes certain expenses. So for example, we lease our printers and that got moved to the service agreements line from the technology line from before. And we moved our cellular service into the telephone line. So those are the reasons that what went into how that number was arrived at for 2021. So I just wanted to point that out. We already talked about professional development, and the only other question that I would want to follow up on is, I think before it was asked how many, or if there were any other public libraries in ND that had gone completely fine-free. I looked into that a little bit more and reached out to the state librarian. There are approximately 5, according to her research. One is called McVille Public Library, Castleton Public Library.
It's Macville.
That's
it's spelled McVille.
The M-A-C.
I know it's 15 miles from where I grew up.
Okay, so Macville, Castleton, Ward County, Mackenzie County, and Bowman Regional are fine-free in ND. So, yeah, we would be certainly one of the libraries with the larger service population in that group. And it's not one that other larger service population, not something that a lot of the other libraries with larger service populations have done at this point. So I think that was all the questions I had to follow up on from things that were asked previously. So does anybody else have anything else for me?
I just have one more quick question. I saw this listed. It was in all capital letters, ODIN.
Yes.
I just wondered.
Yes, great question. That is the Online Dakota Information Network, and that is the name of our consortium that we're part of that manages and supports our integrated library system, which is the software system that we use to manage all of our library transactions. So everything from cataloging our materials to tracking circulation transactions to providing the public interface that you guys interact with. So when you look up a book in our catalog, you're using the system that they support. And so you pay to be a member. There are many libraries across the state that are members. And with that membership fee, they, like I said, provide us technical support and manage all the back end of the system, which is a huge benefit to us because standing up a system like that on your own as a library is very, there's a lot of costs associated with it, including FTE necessary to support a system like that. So that's what that is. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve the library budget, 2021 library budget?
Sure. I'll move to approve the library 2021 library budget.
I'll second.
Second.
That's what we do.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the 2021 library budget, please say aye.
Aye.
I only heard one. Did everybody else say aye?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Darn it, aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to revision of the circulation policies related to fine elimination.
So in conjunction with our budget meeting from last month, we talked about late fines for the remainder of 2020. So that's why I'm bringing this policy revision to you tonight. At the last meeting, I proposed the elimination of late fines on items in the library for the rest of 2020. We currently do not charge fines on our children's collections, but we do charge late fines on everything else currently. So I'll just summarize a little bit for Mandy since she's not at the last meeting. So the reasons for eliminating fines is the main one is that it's not an equitable way for us to provide library services, and because it makes a person's ability to use the library hinge on their ability to pay. So that's the first and foremost most important reason to eliminate fines, and that's the main reason that many other libraries that have done it, that's the main reason that they have done it as well. Additionally, a common misconception is that small fines get items back, and that's not actually true. Case studies and research have shown that small libraries or small fines don't have impact on return rates actually. And currently, we, like many other libraries who decide to eliminate fines, we spend more to collect them than we actually get in revenue. And I don't foresee that changing in the future. Like I said, so we don't charge fines on children's items. We stopped doing that in 2018. And I think that this is just a really positive thing that we can do for the public when everybody is facing a really difficult economic time. And it's a way for us to welcome people back into the library who have been blocked from using our services. So what I did was I revised our policies that were related to fines and circulation. And in order to, there were 3 of them that I looked at mostly. And in order to simplify those policies, I just combined them all into one. So that's why you noticed I labeled them current policy, current policy, current policy, and then revised and combined. Yeah, I think anything we can do to simplify policies for the public is a positive thing. So I just combined them all into one bulk circulation policies. So what I'm asking for tonight is for your approval to stop charging late fines, effective if you were to approve it immediately for the rest of 2020. With the 2021 budget, we would be eliminating late fines as well. So this is just in some ways an earlier start to it to match up with a time when we really want to help people who are struggling and welcome people back to the library. So my other kind of recommendations in conjunction with this is that we have patrons who are blocked because of the accrual of those small late fines. So we currently have about 450 patrons who are blocked, and you are blocked according to our policies when you have a balance of $10 or more. And so the fines on those individuals' accounts total approximately $17,445. So my recommendation and what most libraries do when they eliminate fines is they waive those fines on those accounts, and it would not be waiving replacement fines, replacement costs on people's accounts or damage costs. It would just be the overdue fines. Most libraries that eliminate fines continue to charge replacement fees for items that don't come back or for items that are damaged. So that's the route that I recommend that we go as well. For everybody's knowledge, it takes 28 days from the time an item is overdue for that item to turn lost in our system and for the replacement charge to go on somebody's account. So I think that's all I have to say. So I can take any questions at this point.
So with those patrons who currently have late fees, you'd
Yep.
basically be resetting, you're asking us to reset the clock, but if they don't return them in 28 days, then it switches from a late fee to a replacement fee?
No, so they would just not, nobody would accrue late fees. But if they had an item and it was overdue 28 days later, that item gets noted as a lost item in our system, and then their account is charged the replacement fee.
Okay. I
So-
think we said the same thing in different words.
Maybe. Sorry.
Might tie in with my question then. So do all 400 of those people that are currently on that list, are they also, all 400 of them, they have both late fees that's turned into return fees, or do some of them have late fees but not return fees?
Great question. That list is everybody who's blocked. So there would be people on there who would remain blocked because they probably have lost items on their account. But what I'm suggesting is that anybody that has accrued overdue fines, that those be removed. Does that make sense?
So
It is both. It
How
is
would-
both. It's one total of everybody that's blocked.
do you notify those people that late part is being removed, and then with that same notification, if you notify them, do you also let them know, by the way, though, there's also a return fee that we would appreciate you paying?
I think, are you asking if fines were waived, are we going to notify individuals? Is that your question? Or is your question about when their item is lost and they're charged a replacement fee, are they notified?
Two-part question. Would we do either one of those things?
So we do send people notices when their account is being charged. So if you're gonna get a bill for an item because it has been out long enough that it's now considered lost, you will be notified. So those individuals who have that have already gotten the notice. If this is approved, we will put out public notice that late fines are being removed from individuals' accounts. Not contacting each individual directly, but we will put out a press release and put it on our website and be sure to do everything we can to get the word out for sure. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
So, Carissa, in my research on this topic, what I learned is that, just like you stated, that fines aren't always the greatest way to get people to return their items to the library. But there were two key things that seemed to work at least just as well. And one was continued access to the library. So allowing people to continually have access to items in the library or just access to the library worked just as well. So we've discussed a few things here, but I didn't see it really clearly delineated in your policy. How exactly would a patron stay in good standing with the library? Like, what if they had, is it just one lost item? If one thing turned over into a lost item, would they lose their access to the library? Or what if they had 10 things that, yeah, I'll let you define it.
Yes, good question. And really what it comes down to is the dollar amount that you guys decide to approve as what is the definition of being in good standing. So right now, I did not change the dollar amount that from the policy previously to be considered in good standing. Your account needs to have $10 or less than $10. So if there's desire to change that, which is also something that I have been thinking about, as now the situation is different, right? Now that fines would be eliminated in this scenario, should that dollar amount be higher? I'm open to that. Yeah, I think is that what you're asking? At least partially?
So,
yeah.
Right. So if we consider that fines were used as one impetus to return items and access to the library works better or just as well as fines to return our items to the library? How do we now only or consider now just using access to the library? Yeah,
I understand what you're saying.
I return items. And in your policy, it says as long as they're in good standing, this process works, but it wasn't clearly defined how the patron stays in good standing with the library.
Did I answer your question on that part of it though, with the dollar amount?
Yeah, but it sounds like that could be defined. And I think it should be defined in your policy because patrons have access to these policies somewhere on the website.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So are you saying that part needs to be emphasized, that you remain continuing to access the library if your account has under $10? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
needs to be clearly defined.
Okay.
Yeah.
In those terms.
Yeah, I think
Yep.
so. Yeah.
Yep. I get what
And
you're
when
saying.
you say access, is that like, can you have access to computers in the library
Mhm.
if maybe
Yep.
not just checking out items, but access to just coming into the library and using whatever you're looking for? Is that part of your question, Jody, or no?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was using, mostly to take things away from the
Take
library.
things away.
Yeah. And then the other thing in the articles that I read was that just what you said, the reminders,
Yep.
that those seem to work almost as well as the fines or just as well as having continued
Yep.
access to the library. But I wanted to ask, do you have a non-internet related way to remind people? Okay, you do. That's good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We mail notices still for those anybody that doesn't have email on file.
Okay.
Would get that notice via a paper letter. Yep.
That's great. Thank you.
Yep.
Question, when I was reading through that, I thought I read something about a technology piece, that there would still be fines on technology or electronics or something along those lines. So I guess I'm just wondering, are those fine? What kind of fines those are? And I guess not even familiar with what type of technology you have to offer for a checkout.
Yep. So one thing that is still in the policy is that electronic tablets would still have a fine. And we had internal discussion on this, and the reason that we decided to keep it is because those items are a substantially higher dollar amount than any other item that is circulating, and we only have just a handful of them, so it's a hefty thing to replace. And that item is fined at $5 a day, which is about 50 times what most of our items are fined at, which is 10 cents a day. So we felt like in that particular case that it was appropriate to continue to fine that item, but only that item. And that would apply to two items, and those are iPads, and we have children's tablets too.
Okay.
So that's why we talked about it, and it's tough because it would be much easier to just across the board be able to say that there was 0 fines on everything, but we felt like that it was appropriate to keep those on those items because of the dollar amount. And
Yeah,
so
that makes sense to me as well with that high dollar amount.
Yeah. Yep.
Krista, where do hotspots fall on that?
Good question. So hotspots are a little different, and we've fined them at 10 cents a day, and because they're actually very cheap for us to replace, really what we pay for is the service, and the replacement of them is minimal. I think we actually paid like $15 a device, and that's because we are able to get them at a substantially reduced rate through a company called TechSoup, because we're a public library. So if one were to go out the door or be damaged, we would turn off the service and we would just have to get a replacement one. So that is actually a really low cost item in terms of the physical item. Yeah.
And you may not have the answer for this right now, but since we're talking about dollars and keeping people in good standing, what's the average cost of an item that would need to be replaced?
Yeah.
How do we know what to increase that to?
Sure. Yep. So I would say, and Lauren, you should chime in on this if you think differently, but mostly we have books quantity wise in the library, and the average book I would say is between $20 and $30. Would you say that's accurate, Lauren, from your perspective?
Yeah, for the most part, with the exception of some of the kids' books that are like paperback chapter books might be a little cheaper, but for the most part, they're around $20, $25.
So Carissa, are you looking for us to change that dollar amount of good standing from as well as approve the policy? Or do you want us to just approve the policy?
I think that if you all feel that it's appropriate, I support that idea of increasing that as well, because this is a different ball game. You know what I mean? Now that we're not forcing people to accrue teeny tiny fines, $10 I think did make sense when that was the case. But I think, now when what we're talking about is just mostly going to be replacement costs on people's accounts, I would be comfortable with it being increased to 25 would be, I think, in line because of the average cost of a book. So I would support that and go ahead with that recommendation given our discussion. So yes, both.
The flip side of it is, does it really matter? Because if you lose your good standing at $10, you've lost it at $25.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
isn't
It's
it
just
mostly,
a little, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, isn't it mostly a single item then?
Right.
I mean, isn't that what
But
we're
at least, at least then you lose one and you still have access, and that truly might be effective in helping us get that back too. You know what I mean? If they can still feel welcome at the library. So I don't think I don't think there's no utility in increasing it. Yeah.
So then do you want it to be higher so that if somebody loses one, a book, they still have access?
In my mind, that would be the point in doing that. Yep. Is that where some of your thoughts were coming from too, perhaps?
I mean, I actually feel like you and Larry, maybe as librarians, your opinion matters more here. My goal here was just to make it defined so that people know that, okay, there's no more fines, but I still have to, there's still a rule here, right? I mean, I still have to check out things, and where am I responsible? If I lose a book, I know I have to pay for it, but there's also another consequence, if I just take 2 books home here, I can't come back to the library and take 2 books home again. I either have to bring them back or I have to, pay for them. So whatever it ends up being, it just needs to be defined.
Larry, do you have any insight?
Not from the standpoint of an academic librarian, no. The important part is to get the thing back.
Right.
And if the thing doesn't come back, we need some money to replace it because it's not free.
So it sounds like what we need to decide as a board is the flexibility, and if you lose one item, can you not check out until you pay for it? Or do we want to make it $30, and if you lose a $25 book, you can still access the library, is how I'm interpreting this conversation. Okay, I'm seeing some head nods.
I think the $30 is a good point, is a good set point, because I don't think that makes it up to 2 items. I think that's the one item still break point. And Chris's point is valid. You're still going to see that patron when they come to check out another item. You can say, hey, I just want to remind you, you still have this book. That's another point of reminder.
Another question, does it have to be defined as a dollar amount, or can it just be item amount?
That is a good question, and one that I would probably have to look into, because I think it would depend on what we can do within our system. Yeah. Historically, we've just used the dollar amount. So, but we'd migrated to a new system about 6 months ago, and that could be an option.
Maybe we should table that part of it depends on if you want to go forth with it all together. If you do, then we can vote tonight, but maybe we could table that part of it and vote on the part you wanted tonight, and then we could always vote on that part next month.
My suggestion for the ease of staff and the public is to vote on all of what the policy will be. Because it is difficult from a communication perspective to have flip-flopping, for our users. So I think my recommendation would be to just go with the dollar amount, and we can do research. Policies will get revised regularly. So in the next revision, we can look into that and make that change at that time. But I would say, let's try not to make a revision really close together. You know what I mean?
So do we want to amend the current policy, or do we want to vote to amend the current revised and combined policy so that under late fees, third paragraph, a library account is in good standing if late fees are less than $10? Do we want to amend the policy so that the late fee amount is higher than 10? Or do we want to approve the policy as is?
Personally, I think we should increase the price if our goal is to reach the community.
How about this? Is this too confusing? What if you put, if late fee is $30 or item number is less than or greater than 2, or sorry, if the total amount that is missing is 2 items or something like that, you could designate an item number.
But we're forgiving all late fees, I think, is the intent of the policy.
Right, but we're defining how the account is still in good standing. So if the person accumulates missing items that equal $30 or 3 items, whatever, like if they have 3 items that equal less than $30, is that the point? Then their account is no longer in good standing, or is that too confusing?
I think that makes sense. 2 items or $30, whichever comes first, or 3 items.
I don't think we should make that revision unless we know we can do that in our system, which is why I'm recommending that we go with the dollar amount and make that revision at a different time. Because I'm honestly not, I'm more certain that you probably cannot do that than that we can, based on my knowledge of how our integrated library system in the past works and our current one. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So I will move to amend the revised and combined policy so that the late fees are less than $10, instead is increased to $35.
Is there a second? So to be clear, Larry has proposed that we amend the $10 to $35 to stay under $35 to stay in good standing of the library.
I pulled 35 out because that's about the average price of a hardcover book, adult fiction.
Okay, I will second that, Larry.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the amended revision of the circulation policies, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the director's report.
Well, I'll move to approve the revised and combined policy.
Oh, there's more. Oh. Thank you, Larry. Is there a second?
I'm here, Alana.
I need all the help I can get.
You earned my second just by pronouncing that long, lengthy title correctly. That earned a second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. After a period of silence, I think we can move on to the director's report.
That's a
Okay.
respectful period of silence, by the way.
So I just have a few things, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Lauren to give you guys a little update on how the summer reading program has been going in our new completely virtual format. So, as you know, the library is reopening on Monday, July 13th, and we are excited to welcome people back. When we start out, we're gonna have some modified hours, and we are also designating the first hour of the day, Monday through Friday, to people age 65 or older, or people that have health conditions that put them at high risk. Things are going to look a little different in the library. We're going to actually, for the first part, when we start out here, we're going to have a welcome table outside in the lobby and outside the immediate entrance to the library, where we're going to separate from the table, but just be offering and directing people to sanitizer and masks that'll be available at the door. And then we'll also kind of give people a heads up of how to navigate when you get in, because it will look different. We've removed seating, we have stanchions in place where lines form and things like that. So we're also going to use that as an opportunity to inform people about where they can pick items up on our hold shelf and where our self-check is, because although we are going to stop doing curbside pickup service when we reopen, our hold shelf and our self-check are still good options. Even though you have to come into the library, that's a more contactless way to get your item. So we're going to have that reading station in the lobby, and like I said, we've removed seating, removed computers to ensure social distancing. We'll have floor markers in place. We've installed plexiglass, and we'll have sanitization stations throughout. So we're excited to have people back. Things will look a little differently for a while, and I'm sure, as we go along, like any stage of this, we will learn things that we didn't anticipate when we start out into a new phase of this, and we'll tweak as we go and do the best that we can for the public and for staff as well. So like I said, we are going to stop doing curbside pickup. And the reason for this is just that in June, we saw a huge increase in curbside pickup. Our circulation was about 3 times what it was when we started out in May. And on some peak hours when we were taking calls for curbside pickup of our items and our programming kits, we were sometimes seeing a call volume of almost 30 calls an hour. So that's difficult to maintain when we're also trying to do our best helping people in the building. So that's why we kind of took a step back and added that hour designated to seniors and people with health conditions, because one of the things that we would want to be trying to accomplish with continuing curbside is to give people a way to access materials that puts them at less risk. So that's why we added that hour designated for them. Yeah, in June we had a total of 443 pickups of items and our programming kits at the library. So that was awesome. We've been busy. We started doing curbside delivery directly to people's homes in partnership with the Little Red Reading Bus in the month of June. And at our first week doing this, at the end of June, we did 21 deliveries, and it's been growing every week since. We did our 3rd week of this last week. At this point, we are not going to hold in-person programs yet, but we're talking about what the future of programming is going to look like and thinking about maybe what are some safe options for in-person programming outdoors or socially distanced programming. So we are talking about what the next phase of that looks like as well. So that's my reopening update. A couple other short things are the second director of the West Fargo Public Library, Miriam, I believe her last name is pronounced Arbs. She passed away recently, so she was director for 31 years. So that was the director prior to my predecessor, Sandra. So we did send the staff chipped in and we sent a tree to be planted in her honor to her family. So that's just an update on that. Last week, myself and the other department heads presented to the City Commission at Commission Onboarding about what our departments do and how they are organized and how they function, because we're welcoming a new commissioner, Mandy. So that was really fun and beneficial. And we've recently finished up a absolutely beautiful 2019 annual report. And Ellen Rossau, our communications specialist, and I worked super hard on this, so I'm going to be sending that along to you, and I'm planning to present it to the City Commission on the 20th of July at the upcoming meeting. And the last thing I want to say is just to give a big shout out to our staff, because like I said, they've been busy and they've been doing an amazing job, and we have seen a huge outpouring of comments and Facebook messages and physical cards in the mail sometimes with thanks for the things that we're doing. And so I do want to share just a few of those with you tonight. So we got a Facebook message recently that said, "Shout out to the library staff for being amazing and helpful. I finished reading a book and was having trouble with the Overdrive app to read the second book in the series, and the staff had me back in and reading 10 minutes later. Thank you." We got a card in the mail that said, "To all the library staff, thank you for all your willingness to help me get books, a lifeline at this time, and so much appreciated." We got another Facebook comment that said, "Nothing our kids love more than to get their hands on books they haven't seen this whole quarantine. So I'm so grateful to the West Fargo Public Library and the Little Red Reading Bus for keeping books in their hands and the love of reading going." We got a comment said to a staff member during a curbside pickup. A mom shared that her son was loving the summer reading program. She said he did not enjoy school from home and never wanted to read, but now he asks to read and loves to earn buttons and prizes. His mom said he hopes to earn the dragon button, which is 45 hours of reading. So we've gotten a lot of great feedback, and so just big shout out to our staff who've done an amazing job, and big thanks to the public for sticking with us during an unprecedented and difficult time. And thanks to all of you as well for all of your support and for flexibility and also willingness to try new things along with us. So we appreciate that. So now I'll turn it over to Lauren to give you an update on the summer reading program.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen quick. I have a few slides that Kirsten, the adult services librarian, and I put together. Just kind of an update here on summer reading as it's going so far. All right, so as we've gone 100% virtual, that meant to start our program, we normally have a big kind of kickoff party in person at the library with lots of things happening. We had to adjust that this year. So we did a bit of a virtual kickoff party, a kind of special that we did via Facebook and YouTube. So we had various community members, including Bernie Dardis, Stephanie Shea from the Little Red Reading Bus, Alana took part as well, read stories. We also had an Ask a Princess time with in conjunction with the FMCT. And then we kind of intercut that with some information about the summer reading program and how it was looking this year. So as we're virtual, we had to utilize a few different tools to kind of facilitate this summer. So it's a combination of our website, Facebook, YouTube, and then Beanstack, which was the program and mobile app that I had demoed back in May at the board meeting. And we've kind of broken it out into sort of 3 to 4 different age range groups there, just so people can sort of join those groups and just sort of get more targeted targeted events and information sent to them, so they're not getting everything for the little kids if maybe they're adult taking part or a teen. So we're kind of utilizing those 3 different groups there in those different platforms. So Beanstack, as I mentioned, is the tool our patrons are using to track their reading and activities this summer. So it's been really exciting to launch it, and it seems like people have really taken to sort of reading and unlocking the badges and the buttons, and they're enjoying that element of it. So as of a few days ago, we had 479 total readers registered in summer reading, and there was 3,006 hours read in June. Again, I checked just a couple days ago and we were up to over 3,800 hours. So people are reading a lot. We've had a number of kids already read 30 hours, some going towards the 45 and 60 hours as well. The great thing about Beanstack is it does a lot of sort of data pull for us and kind of help analyze some of the information that it pulls in. So that graph there in the middle just kind of shows the breakout of the age group. It's pretty consistent as it has been in previous years, where our biggest group taking part this summer is at 6 to 12 years old. So kind of the elementary school tend to be our biggest group of users there, with 267 this year. And then it's kind of split out. Our second highest group is that 18 plus, so the adult range, with 87, and our 0 to 5 with 75. Beanstack also can break down some other information for us. So there's kind of a graph of the readers based on gender. So that was kind of the reading tracking we do. The other side of our program are the events we have. So again, we really had to flip this year. So we've kind of done a combination of live events and some pre-recorded programming that we also offer some kits that parents or families can pick up via curbside to use for the programs. So each week we've had about 1 craft event for kids, 1 STEM-based activity for kids. We have our 2 story times weekly. And then in addition, there's like 1 to 2 adult or teen and adult family type events. Some of those have been live events. So actually right now we have one of our live events happening. There's Brothers Grimm trivia happening. So families can take part of that. It seems to be a nice way to join via Zoom and kind of have a little bit of that social interaction. Otherwise, we do release pre-recorded like craft videos. We've had pretty positive results from that too. We have some images there of some of the unicorns we made earlier this month. It's going well with the pickup on Fridays. We kind of release the kits and they go pretty quickly. So within like the first hour, all of our kits are almost entirely reserved already and picked up. So people are really excited about it and still enjoying taking part in kind of a different way. So we still have about 3.5 weeks left of summer reading program. So we still have lots happening. A new addition we're doing this year is we're having a graphic novel and short story writing contest. So this is just another way for our patrons to kind of engage with the summer reading theme of Imagine Your Story. So it's open to all ages. We'll have kind of, each category will have 3 age groups. So elementary kids work will not be judged against an adult. They'll kind of be broken out. And then they'll also be broken out between graphic novels, stories, and short stories. So they can register on the website and send in their stories, and then that's open through the end of the month. And then we will have a panel judge them in the beginning of August, and then the awards for first, second, and third place will be given out in mid-August. Another new kind of tool we're using this summer, and we'll plan to continue using this going forward for programming and services we provide, is called Project Outcome. And that is a toolkit provided by the Public Library Association that has kind of the basic components that a library would need to do evaluation and surveys. So they kind of have developed standard surveys that we can customize a little bit as well for the various outcomes we'd like to measure. So what does our community need? How much are we doing it? What is the outcome we're accomplishing? And then patron satisfaction as well. So this tool also will pull in all that data for us and analyze it. So we have kind of both quantitative and qualitative data that we can communicate to the community, to the board, and use when we're, you know, creating our programming and our services that we provide. So this summer, we're doing this for our story times, for a few of our writing workshops that we're doing, and then as summer reading as a whole, to sort of gauge the outcomes we've been having from that. And we're looking to continue this going forward to really be a tool that the programming team as a whole can use to sort of make sure we're heading in the right direction for our programming and that we're really accomplishing the goals and meeting community needs with that. And then looking ahead, One Book, One Community is actually starting pretty soon. So it's a little earlier this year than in past years. It's starting in August and September this year. So Kirsten has been hard at work planning a lot of great activities in conjunction with One Book, One Community. So a lot more information will come out in a couple weeks about that. But this year's novel is The Logger Queen of Minnesota. So I think it's a pretty popular book. So I think it'll be a really fun community read this year. And that was most of mine. Quick synopsis of summer reading so far.
As you presented on the graphic novel contest, I remembered that I was supposed to ask for a volunteer who wanted to judge. We need one volunteer, or we'd hope to have one volunteer board member to judge. Lauren, do you remember which segment of it?
Yes, the short story contest. Okay. So we'll have 2 staff members, and then we're looking for a board member if anyone's interested to help. We do have rubrics we're creating too, so it'll kind of be a very standardized thing, and it'll be in the beginning of August once the contest has closed.
And would we just send them the submissions electronically, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So we could just send them right to you, and we could send the rubrics, so it could be done at your pace.
Would Commissioner George be eligible for that role? That would get her really involved in the library right away.
I'd be open to it if I'm an option.
Thanks for being a good sport.
I think you should do it.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Awesome. We'll go with that. Great.
Thank you.
The only other item that I had that I also remembered is I was going to ask you all if you would be okay if I invited John Shockley to our next board meeting to do some training and a little onboarding for the full board. This is something that Alana and Jody and I had been talking about doing with us since we were new. But I think it might be good since we now have, like myself included, 4 relatively new people on the library board if he just came to the next meeting. Is that okay with you if I invite him?
Yeah, is he comfortable doing Zoom?
Yes. Yep.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, will do. That's all I've got.
I was just going to say, for the one in August, I may be out of town on a camping trip, so a Zoom meeting would actually work really well, so I could still participate even if I'm out of town.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So is there any other business?
Oh, we don't dare ask any questions. We're late for Brothers Grimm trivia.
Oh.
Congratulations.
We better be done.
Congratulations on your election, Mandy, and good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Congrats again and welcome.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I'm super excited to be on this board in particular. So thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for participating.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, I want to hear all about it.